take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes. I'm your host, Neil, and today I get the privilege of sitting down with, I'm going to now start to call him a friend. We met in a very crazy realm of circumstances. He is actually employed at a place that I used to work. And through a series of, I would say, almost Lemony Snicket-esque, a series of unfortunate events, we have crossed paths. And so today I get to sit down with Nolan. Nolan, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You know, I'm doing awesome. I steal from Dave Ramsey better than I deserve, which sounds so cliche in a sense, but I do really mean that when I say that. I'm so blessed beyond belief, and sometimes I forget that, but
yeah,
I digress. So, Nolan, we're going to jump into this. We're going to be talking about this idea of belonging and how belonging, along with image and approval, kind of all of that kind of cascading in together into this stream that we're going to be kind of walking through today. So I never prepped you ahead of time other than to say, hey, we're going to talk about belonging. So you don't know these questions. And so I am super excited because I love that aspect of my show that I bring people on and I ask them questions in a dialogue fashion and they get a real raw reaction. So I'm going to start out with this. This is kind of a fun one that I like to start the show off with. So Nolan, what size shoe do you wear?
Let's see. Mostly it's a 9.5 to a 10, depending on the brand.
9.5 and 10, and that's what I was going to lead into next.
I've even found some shoes that I fit size 11 in, and that's really weird.
Wow, that is weird.
So
okay, so what is your preferred shoe of choice?
Right now I'm really favoring my Uggs because it's it's getting towards the end of winter, so getting light rain. Just waterproof and well.
Gotcha.
But I love sandals. If I can have
so that's what I was gonna say. Like dream shoe. What are you wearing? Like because the idea is we're walking in your shoes, right?
Right.
So the idea of what shoes are we putting on for you today?
Yeah. Right now. So I own a pair of Vibram 5 Fingers as well.
I've never even heard that brand.
Vibram makes amazing shoes that are meant to fit and form fit to your feet.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And all the toes are separated.
Oh, it's one of those type of shoes.
Yep.
Okay, I have seen those. Okay,
yeah.
I take that back. I have seen those.
I got into them. Let's see, a couple winters ago, and I have the insulated hiking ones, so I wear those when I go hiking. And
nice.
I absolutely love the feel and the texture, being able to grip the dirt kind of thing, grip rocks, that kind of stuff.
Wow.
It's good.
I'm not... See, here's the weird thing. I love shoes, and there is a lot of them. If people have heard past episodes, I've alluded to the fact of my shoe collection. In fact, today I'm wearing my Vans, which I am rocking, which are very similar to my logo of the show. But I do have a lot of shoes, but the idea of having my toes separated in different, that's weird because I'm not a foot guy, but I love shoes. It's a very weird paradox.
If I had hard enough feet to go barefoot all the time, I probably would.
You would?
Yeah, it's
that's
just
weird.
Not socially acceptable.
That's weird. That's almost Hobbit-like. That's weird.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump in. Here we go. Do we settle on a brand? What are we wearing? What brand are we wearing?
We didn't really settle on a brand.
Okay. Do you have one?
If I have to choose,
yeah,
probably Birkenstock.
Birkenstocks. Okay, so we're wearing 9 Birkenstocks.
Yeah, although those come in centimeters, so 43 is what I wear.
Ooh, there we go. A 43 in Birkenstocks. This is gonna be hard for me to be in Birkenstocks right now, but I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there with you. Right now we're going there. Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. I never like to kind of wade into the water. I'm a cannonball kind of guy. So here we go. We're just jumping right in. Here we go. Ready for the splash. Why do you want to belong?
I think often, personally, I desire to belong because there's an amazing sense of being a human and getting this closeness with other humans. I don't know how else to describe it. I know for a fact humans have tested, in terrible tests, of course, but the ability to put a human alone for an extended amount of time, hoping that they may reach some form of enlightenment or God or whatever, and next thing you know, the human dies. And it's really not clear as to why. Terrible experiments, but informative.
One of my favorite movies is Castaway, and my wife, love you, honey, doesn't understand my obsession with this movie, Castaway, and I think part of the reason, spoiler, if you've never seen Castaway, really old movie, Tom
it would
Hanks.
be a spoiler for me, so I've never seen it.
You've never seen? No. Oh my gosh!
I know about Spalding, but that's about it.
Okay, it's Wilson, but that's okay.
Wilson.
So,
Yeah, okay.
So in this movie, Castaway, just so go watch it if you haven't seen it yet. Nolan's gonna go watch it too. Nolan, by the way, how old are you? We got to put this in context.
I'm 23 years old.
There we go. That's
graduated
why.
University, married.
There you go. Awesome. 23 years old. Man, to think back to that.
24 next month.
Congratulations. Happy birthday. So, so here's where I'm at. Is in this movie Castaway, Tom Hanks is just a really fast Reader's Digest version of it. He's a FedEx worker, gets on a plane, plane crashes. He's on this deserted island. He's on there for, I want to say like 7-8 years, something crazy like that. But the whole time he's on this island, he's thinking about being back home, thinking about getting back to the love of his life, thinking about all this. That's all his focus is, getting off the island, right? And so, of course, along the way, there's this volleyball that comes into play, Wilson, whatever. But even in that, he's interacting with this volleyball. Now, mind you, the volleyball doesn't talk back to him verbally, but I think in his own mind, he's having these dialogue, this conversation. They build this connection. There's a really sad part of the movie. I'm not going to spoil that part for you, but there is a really sad part in the movie involving their, we'll call it quote unquote relationship. But even in that, right, there's still that sense of belonging. There's still that sense of connection. And so that's what leads into my next question is, why do you think belonging, holding hands in a sense with connection is so vital to people, especially people of your generation? Because really, I mean, you're a whole different, sphere that I'm in at 23 compared to 39. I mean, your experiences growing up were way different than mine, and so maybe talk about that from your own perspective. What that again, that connection and that belonging, how does that fit into kind of your upbringing and where you're at?
Man, this is such a great question because in my generation specifically, belonging is the biggest key. I mean, why do you think we're on social media a lot? And it's even getting progressively or maybe even digressively worse. The social dynamics are changing to such a large degree that I think people in the millennial generation are just, they don't know how to belong well anymore. And so they're seeking some sort of baseline friendship of, oh, you like the same things I like, you agree with what I agree with, therefore we're friends. And they never go beyond that surface level and get into deeper issues. And if they do, it's like, wow, you must be my best friend because you listen to me. It's so, on one level, easy to just become friends and whatever. And on the next level, become absolute dislikers of one another because you disagree with me, right? So if the same likeness is a relationship, then the opposite is the opposite. It's hating somebody else. And we no longer know how to say, oh, well, that's your informed bias opinion, whatever it is, and I may not agree with you, but we can still hang out from time to time and talk that subject out. We've heard so often in our culture, and I grew up with it especially in my household of, you don't talk anything like religion, politics, death. Death was like the biggest no-no. We don't talk about dying. And so when we don't talk about these things, we totally forget how to relate to them. And when we end up talking about them with other people, we find out they have different opinions. What? We absolutely forget. And it's the biggest problem. And yet, it creates such an interesting point where if you do talk about that with somebody, and you're able to get to a relationship where you're able to speak into somebody else's life, it's the deepest relationship that you can have. And they're willing to talk, and they're willing to listen. And they do feel, I would say, that place of belonging with you. And it's absolutely intimate and vulnerable.
So leading into my next question, why do you, and you kind of answered this a little bit, but why do you think others struggle so much with belonging, especially people of your generation? I just did the math. So you were born in 1996. I am in finishing up 95. Sorry, my math was a little off because I added a year for your birthday. So, okay, so 95. So even still, 95, I'm 15. Oh, that's hard to admit. But I'm in my, I'm in my high school years, and you're just a little baby, So why do you think people of your generation struggle so much with belonging? And I know you're answering probably for your generation, but maybe you grew up with struggling with belonging, and maybe that's something you could maybe speak of a little bit better.
So I grew up in a household where my parents, they're divorced, but both of them sought that belonging with other people throughout my whole life. So all I saw was either how to try and find that place of belonging, or how to put up with somebody long enough to where you feel like you belong with them. And I essentially ended up choosing, as I got older, one way over the other, mainly that of female company. Absolutely. I was like, just that's what's going to complete me. Another counterpart, right? Something I can put my hopeless romance in, something I can really fall in line with, and somebody else that's going to fill that void in my relationship. And so seeking that, I want to say that love to a large degree, but love as in just human definitions, not necessarily the healthiest place to find that part of you that's missing, right? And so I absolutely ended up falling into broken relationship after broken relationship because I never got into the relationship with the right heart to begin with, or the right reason. And I see this going on so much in my generation. We are idolizing sex and love and all these big buzzwords that, at least in what I'm seeing in my culture, in my generation, of things that are supposed to create intimacy, and yet we find out it's more work than it's actually worth to a degree, and it becomes a struggle, and now you have to make recompense with the decisions you've made, and you totally end up forgetting that the love you're seeking isn't in somebody else, isn't in the idea of love itself. There's a large portion of it that's within you. And for me, I would say so far as to say Jesus.
Great answer on that. So I came across this quote. I want to know what comes to mind when you hear it. Here's the quote. It says, we are driven by 5 genetic needs: survival, love, belonging, power, freedom, and fun. Is that more than 5? Survival, 1, love, belonging, power, freedom, and love. Nope, there's 5. I just can't count. So what comes to mind when you hear that? Agree with it? Disagree with it? What thoughts come to mind? Let's
run down the list one at a time. So the first one, if I remember, is survival.
Survival, correct. Why is survival such a genetic need?
We're innately, as a human being, the first thing you do is learn how to cry because you need something, right?
Right.
And I don't think there's any way around that. You figure out how to baseline communication, body needs ... And so it's communicated in some way, shape, form. You're not even really consciously thinking about it. You just know you need breath. You need something to fill your lungs that's going to be of substance. You need something that's going to fill your body of substance, milk, whatever it is, right? And so as a human, survival is dependent solely on really everyone else around you and your level of being able to communicate it. If you can't communicate it, which is why if a baby doesn't cry, we're seeing obvious problems in the baby physiologically. A lot of the time it's something going on. If the baby doesn't cry, it's a big problem. Babies cry. And as humans, we're always on an innate level crying out to survive. It just comes out in different forms as you learn how to communicate.
I like that answer. That was really good. Love. Again, the 5 genetic needs that we have. Love.
Yeah. So I'm not sure love is genetic so much as experienced. And if it is genetic, then how are we understanding it? That's the first thing that comes to my mind. So if it is genetic, the first way I would think about understanding love is being held. As an infant, the first thing you're going to desire is somebody else being there, somebody else to comfort you, warm you. Even if it's just a biological need, you need somebody. And doing those actions, doing those things of service to you as an infant are going to show a form of love. You can have a baby and then deny basically the being that you just produced and choose to toss it into a ditch. Horrific. But on the reverse of that, then caring for it is going to show compassion, going to show love, empathy. And the human being is going to naturally feed off of that. If you don't obtain some sort of empathy and compassion on you as an infant, then biologically you're going to die. You need somebody else. You can't survive on your own as a human.
Okay. And then belonging.
Belonging being this sense, again, I'm using the infant here because it's the most baseline human we have.
Sure, not a lot of influence per se.
Not a lot of experience.
Okay, right.
This is
I like it.
right. So I'm running with the infant here, and so belonging requires hands to hold you again. Let's go back to that. You need that compassion. You need that empathy, not just to survive, not just to feel loved, but now to feel like you're part of something. To feel like there's something else that's going to take care of you, to want you back. And so naturally you thrive off of that, and as a human you need that. I need that. I know I'm sure I did as a baby. Like if I didn't have my mom and my dad at some point, I was at a loss for life. And so the thing that's going to make that biological is the absolute necessity for community and relationship that's going to teach me how to develop thoughts, teach me new experiences, new ways of life, and cultural understanding. Without them, I couldn't have had any of that.
And then how does power fall into that, do you think?
Define power for me.
So, I would think power falls into, your self-empowerment, or maybe your power from maybe a higher purpose. What is giving you the power to kind of maybe walk through life? Again, this genetic need to have power. Maybe people want to feel, that they are in a sense of control. I mean, I don't know. I didn't obviously come up with the quote, but there is this idea of power as being something that we, genetically want.
Yeah. What was your kid's first word?
My daughter's first word, boy, was probably mommy or mama, maybe even daddy. I'm sure it was my wife first because she's more awesome. Did calling by that title give her an edge of being able to say, hey, I need something? Sure. I think, when kids start to communicate, I would think that would give them a sense of power on their own, that now there's less, so to speak, codependency per se, and now there's this, ability to actually speak on their own. Yeah.
Yeah. And I bring that up because having the name of somebody, I didn't know what your kid's first word was. And obviously, in asking that question, if it was no, then that's still a form of being able to power, right? So learning how to communicate using terminology like mom, dad, yes, no, 4 basic words in the English language that most kids are usually their first. Pretty sure mine was either cookie or banana.
She did learn please in sign language, which was helpful too.
Okay.
So
So something that helped get attention
right.
of showing a need or a want.
Right.
And so using words to communicate, oftentimes that gives us an edge of power over somebody else. Even if they say no or whatever their answer is, we're able to have a level of control. And if this is genetic, then that's the most baseline you can get. It makes me think of when the God of the Bible introduces himself to humanity for one of the first times. He just says, I am. He never gives us a name. And that's unlike any other God that had been thought of in a very polytheistic world at that time. This is a God that has denied humanity a name. You can't control a God that doesn't give you a name even. In most other polytheistic religions, if you have a name, you have a level of control. You can call upon that God to do something, right?
Almost like a genie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, yeah.
You use a sacrifice, you have an altar, whatever it is. You've got some level of control. You've got an idol, whatever. You're able to worship that thing. And given 1 out of 10 times, it might heed your call and bless you with whatever you just asked. But this God in the Bible denied even that. So that's one of those interesting things that as humans, I think we kind of forget that giving somebody just a name of you, even an extension of you, the ability to call upon you, that's power.
And then the last two, freedom and fun.
Freedom and fun. I think we can put these two things together. In understanding humanity on a base level, at least from my limited perspective and whatnot, we often desire fun. Absolutely. And so often desiring fun specifically, we search in places that we think provide freedom. I'm laughing because it's hard for me to get away from the cultural perspective that I have in so much as what we think gives us freedom, and often we equate that to being fun, is usually not the case. So, for example, we think we have the freedom of speech. And yet, there are many people who, if we speak out and we disagree with, they're not going to like us. They're just not going to agree. And there are specific groups of people, especially politically these days, where they will say, oh, well, if you think you have the freedom of speech, then our group is going to come and shut you down because we don't like what you're saying. So you don't really have freedom. You think you do, but you don't. And so using that as a base and as an example, when we have fun with our freedom of speech, for example, we think we're able to have fun in saying whatever we want to say. But the minute we start to have fun in that so-called freedom, other people come and shut us down. They don't like us. We get hate comments, whatever it is. Next thing you know, you're not really having fun anymore, and you're not really feeling free. That's just one example. There are many more.
Sure. So you brought up your faith kind of a little bit just moments ago. How does your faith give you a sense of belonging?
So, just like many other religions, you get a sense of being connected with something and part of something bigger. I can't, and even atheists, I think, feel this connection with other atheist groups or whatever they choose to partner with. Maybe it's a philosophy, maybe it's just the idea of math itself being whatever holds the universe together. You get this sense of, I have this group that I think like, and we agree, and therefore we belong. That's on a base understanding of religion. But on a personal, intimate level, this belonging often is going into the religious text of each of those groups. How does that belonging with that creation or that creator or that whatever, Buddha, whatever have you, how does that really function in your understanding of belonging? And my faith, being a Jesus follower, it's a belonging that I hadn't heard in any other real religion before, or faith-based system, in that there's a God who basically sacrificed himself just to be in relationship with you once again, and desires you so much that next thing you know, you're dealing with this God who's like, hey, so I've just done all this for you, and now you can be reconciled back unto me. You can love me back again, and I want that as much as anybody, as a father, as a creator. So choose me, please, and I'll do whatever it takes to get you back. I want you. I desire that relationship. And that becomes a personal thing. At no other point in other religions have I found that personal relationship. Oftentimes it's you as the human having to expand your consciousness, your mindset, your denying yourself of physical realities and pleasures, things like that require you to reach the state of elevation, nirvana, their level, right? You got to become and elevate yourself to that level of godness, making it so that you can be wholly on your own terms or on your own merit before these other things. But this is the exact opposite, and I had never heard that before.
So why do you think so much of our life is spent in image and seeking approval and sense of belonging, and how does that fit into your life, this idea of image and approval and seeking belonging? How does that fit into your life?
Yeah. So being somebody that engages other people basically for a living, and is to be there for when somebody's sick, somebody's having a marital crisis, those kinds of things. That sense of wanting to belong and wanting to be liked at the same time, I think, can become intoxicating for many.
How so?
So,
and maybe make it specific to you. How could that be intoxicating for you?
Yeah, for me, it could be intoxicating if I let it, because these people, next thing I know, or this person is relying on me. And now that they're relying on me, they're also asking me questions that I can answer. And if I can answer those questions, I can have some level of shaping how they think and how they work, and challenging current beliefs that they currently hold, which may or may not be good, depending on different standards, right? And so I have to be really careful, not just within my own being, but within theirs, to ask, one, what's best for them, and how can I make them the focus to the point where it's not about me, it's about them. Getting rid of the ego. I just finished reading a book that was all about a guy who, back in 67, Harvard professor, basically dropped his whole current lifestyle because he was using psychedelics and realized his ego wasn't worth it. And then traveled India, met a guru. Guru was like, oh yeah, we used to do that, but now we just try and focus on getting rid of our ego in the here and now and focusing on where we're at currently in our physical state so that we can, show others the way. And as much as I may not agree with that basic, philosophy of life, I can at least agree with this sense of getting rid of the ego. If you are still maintaining an ego, especially in a position where you are teaching others or just being around others, really, and being an example, then by all means, get rid of the ego. The ego is what's going to hinder you from helping them to the best of their ability and your ability. And it's going to be either a way to hurt them or a way to help them. And you are the one that kind of decides that.
So, have you ever had a time where you felt left out?
And
if so, what was that like?
I'm sure I have. I've got the emotion and flashbacks to basic memories from when I was a kid. Recently, I can't say I have, which is amazing. Oh, you know what? Actually, one did just pop into my brain. Recently, my wife comes home and she walks in the door saying, I bought tennis rackets and some tennis balls. Let's go play tennis. And my first response is, that's amazing. We haven't played tennis before. I really haven't had a date time with her in a while now. I would love that. And so I think, yeah, let's play tennis. I was sitting at my computer playing video games. What else am I going to do? Sure, let's play tennis. And she goes, okay, then let's do it right now. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it right now. Can I do this one thing real quick? So I do this one thing, right? All this to say, the tennis date never actually happens on that day. She sat on her computer watching Netflix. I sat at mine playing video games. My brother came over, distracted me at least, and we hung out with him, which was cool, but I wanted a date with my wife. I haven't had that. And I've been missing that, So I go, okay, well, let's reschedule. And she comes back maybe 3 days later. She goes, okay, so I've been really busy, and I've just scheduled this thing with my brother who lives right next door to go play tennis. I'll see you in a few hours. I go, what? Why aren't we playing tennis? I thought you and I were going to play tennis. Why is he playing tennis? So my understanding was, why would I want that? I don't want him to play tennis with you. I want to play tennis with you. That's not fair. I felt left out. I was disappointed and I was hurt. Come to find out, after talking about it with both of them, it was a lack of communication. When I was busy that same day of being asked, lo and behold, she had asked my brother as well if he wanted to play tennis, and he said yeah, so they actually kind of scheduled a time. It wasn't on her calendar, which I thought was, interesting, because normally I look at both of our calendars to see when we're busy. And so all those miscommunications led to me feeling disappointed and hurt and feeling left out. And I look back on it now and I go, yeah, that was definitely all my fault. Instead of communicating, even I could have invited myself, which they both explicitly stated later. I just felt it was weird for me to invite myself, and it was my emotional state that was keeping me from doing that action. So, yeah, I've definitely had moments in my life where I feel like I'm not belonging, like I'm left out, and I'm hurt. But oftentimes I also find it's because of my own doing.
Well, I was going to lead into that too, and maybe build on that a little bit more, is this idea that I think everyone wants to belong on some level. Now, I've had people push back against me this last week that said, no, that's not true. I would be content, being in a cabin in the woods, with a fishing pole in my hand on a lake, all by myself, and I'm fine. But I think there is a deep-rooted and something inside of us that still says, I need to belong. Everybody wants to be a part of the team. Everyone wants to be on the team. I don't think there's very few people that really say deep down, no, I don't want to be a part of that. Maybe they have some social anxiety, and maybe that's why they don't want to be a part of that. But I think people deep down still want that sense of belonging. Do you agree with that? And if so, how would you respond to that?
Yeah, so the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking was this biblical terminology of having a hardened heart. I have met those people before that say, I don't need another human in my life and I could be fine forever. They could go off grid completely out of nowhere, right? Never have to touch another human again. And I say, but no internet, no phone, hey, no ways to communicate with your own family, even whatever. I've met those people that even then they say, yeah, good. I don't want that. And that shows a heart condition to me of being a baseline human where they've been hurt to the point where they don't want to go back. They don't want to even try to engage in community anymore because community sucks, and so this isn't super uncommon these days, unfortunately, because we only know broken relationships much in modern day society. I mean, the divorce rate, for example, is at 50% or higher now. And there are many people having kids and not sticking with the commitment of having a kid. The fact that you're not sticking with that commitment shows that you're not caring, right? And so when you're having breakdowns of relationship and brokenness, and all you see, and you're raised, for example, in a broken family, and you see brokenness, why would you ever, there's two ways you can go. Why would you ever want that to happen to you? So it's easier to cut off all humanity and live on your own terms and your own means, and you can do it all. Or you can choose to say, yeah, no, just because that one thing happened to me, that's not the end all be all. I choose to be in community that's healthy, to fix communities that are broken, and to fix and revitalize communities that really need somebody who cares and loves and is able to empathize and provide. You can choose one or the other. Meeting those people that choose the, I would argue, unhealthy option, the bitter and intended option, that sounds painful and miserable. And it's not that they don't want to belong. I think they definitely do on a degree. It's that they don't want to be hurt again. There's a encasing around the heart there that they really just are done, and they've been hurt too many times, and it creates anger and bitterness. I think every human definitely does want to belong.
So with that being said, again, just building on this idea of belonging and all of that, in our culture today, especially, and you, I think of all people, could really speak about this probably best because you've been immersed in this new world. You've always lived in a world with the internet, which still is fascinating to me. Yeah. You've lived in a world always with smartphones and all of that.
Well,
so
we went through the Razor and then, the Motorola and all them before smartphones. So.
Yeah. So you do remember the Razor? Yeah. I love that phone. Little self-plug there. Motorola, if you want to send me a Razor, I would love it. Just kidding. I won't give up my iPhone. But with that being said, with social media, and you kind of talked about that, and especially, I mean, you're growing up in an era where there was always Facebook too, right?
Not always. We had MySpace first.
Okay. But what I'm saying is you had some social media
way
of some sort, right?
Okay. Friends and contacts.
Right. Yeah. Top 5, right? Was that? I never had a MySpace, by the way.
Oh, okay.
I never had a MySpace. Yeah, I don't know why. I just never did. But anyway, so here we are. So here's my next question: is how, in your opinion, is bullying playing a role in our youth today in relation to belonging? That's kind of a big question, but in your opinion, how is bullying playing a role in youth today in relation to belonging?
Yeah, so from my limited experience here,
Right.
um, I think bullying plays on insecurities and mentalities of youth that makes it easier to control the human, right? And so oftentimes, let's say somebody already has mild social anxiety, just for whatever reason. They're nervous just communicating with other people. And next thing you know, a bully finds that out. They're going to exploit that and extort that. And they're going to say, look, you belong nowhere unless you hang out with me. That's bullying too, right? It's not a real friendship. It's not a real relationship. And when the bully gets the chance, they'll abuse the person because the person's easy to abuse. So bullying, I think, definitely plays on a deeper level of youth today, especially, than we even realized before, because now we've got a bunch of, thanks to psychologists and psychiatrists, we've got a bunch of labels that we now know we can slap on different disorders and things. And those labels lead to, as like you've talked about labels on the show, so those labels allow you to start feeling that's your identity. And next thing you know, your identity becomes your most important thing to you. And somebody else learns how to exploit your labels, they learn how to exploit your identity. So it's easy to do that when people, especially today, are just labeling themselves or taking whatever labels psychologists or psychiatrists or doctors are giving them. And they're taking these meds and they're taking these labels and they're saying, well, I'm depressed. That is me, depressed, right? Yeah, instead of saying, for example, I struggle with depression, I'm working through depression, I will get through this, determination language, they're just saying that is me. And now somebody is able to say, oh, look, it's the depressed guy, the depressed kid. Look at how messed up his home life is, or her home life is. And bullies, like, know how to exploit this easier because of social media platforms, because of the internet. We're now dealing with an era where the internet is someplace that people post this kind of stuff, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, Snapchat, whatever. People are just saying, hey, I got this new label today, and this is me now, and I'm going to slap it on my whiteboard with all my other labels, and just write that down. Make a note, put a little star next to it, and call it good. And now you can look at my whiteboard. You can look at my post history. And my post history tells you everything about me that you need to know to make fun of me, to exploit me, to abuse me. It's so much easier than before, because before bullies had to find out which kid was the weak kid on the playground by pushing them. If they'll push back, then don't mess. But hey, if they don't push back, keep doing it. Kids these days, and people these days, not even kids, are willing to just kind of sit down, take their meds, and not even push back. That's scary.
Well, and I think that leads into this idea, again, of labels and all of that other stuff, of kids wanting to belong somewhere, right? Yeah. And so with that, then they subscribe to something like, well, I'm depressed, so let me hang out with all my other depressed kids, or hey, I'm I have anxiety issues, let me hang out with the small few that struggle with anxiety, or whatever. And I think, again, everybody wants that sense of belonging. Everyone wants that quote unquote membership card of, I'm now important because I have this or I have that, or whatever.
This label that's now me.
Right.
Other people have that label too, so we're not alone. And we can create a community around it.
Right. We now can belong together because we, again, like you said, we can now subscribe to that community.
Back in the 60s and 70s, when marijuana was huge, there were people getting together just because that was all they had in common. You smoke weed? I smoke weed. Sure, let's hang out. And, I mean, of course, that's still a thing. But in the 80s, it became cocaine, and then it became into progressive, harder substances, and still is. We're now taking that same mentality, and we're just slapping identities and labels around and saying, yeah, this creates a community, because we don't know how to breed good, healthy relationship around things we don't know how to talk about.
Right. So I did some research. So first off, I don't know if this is alarming to you, but it was a little bit alarming to me in preparing today. Apple does not release their advertising dollars. So I'm going to say that again. It bears repeating. Apple will not release any of their advertising dollars, how much they spend on advertising. Is that alarming to you?
No.
Why?
It's my first thought was, oh, yeah, no, that makes sense. Because, I had never heard this statistic before, precursor, but it makes sense to me, because if they ever did release the numbers that they made from advertising, it would be way higher than anybody would ever expect.
But not even made, but just dollars they're dedicating to advertising. So I did a little bit of research. So this is what I could find. Not much, by the way, and I invite others to do the same. Just take a look at what major companies are spending on advertising. And the reason why I say this is because, to me, advertising immediately associates with belonging, with image, with approval. So I think it falls in line with what we're kind of talking about today.
Okay.
So here we are. So here's the last some bit of data, and then we'll get into a question. So Apple spent an estimated now 118 million dollars in TV advertising. Okay, that doesn't sound like a lot, but then when you compare that to what they're spending on television advertising just alone in the second quarter, and this goes back a couple of years. I think this is about 2015, 2016. But during the second quarter, they generated now $3.2 billion in advertising dollars. And to me, I think, wow. And it's probably higher than that. But again, it's all hush, secret. So when you hear things like that, when you hear about image and you hear about approval and you hear about belonging and you hear about all these, ginormous companies spending all kinds of advertising dollars to focus on you, to focus on me, to focus on the average person, why do you think they're spending so much money on advertising? And how does advertising in your mind, fall into belonging and image and approval seeking?
So if they don't release their numbers, how did we get those numbers? Just out of curiosity.
Well, again, I think people are speculating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're speculating. They're kind of guessing. They're doing some, I don't know, projections maybe.
Yeah. Spending money on advertising is something that I think a lot of people are taught how to do. And yet they're not taught how to do it well. So we can think about Instagram influencers. We can think about, Facebook marketing, that kind of stuff. There are people who are making bank just by affiliate marketing different products to people. They're knowing how to work the system of what people will click on and what people will want to buy, just if you market it right. So if it doesn't even matter what your product is, I mean, to a degree, sure, but I've seen people learn how to do drop shipping, for example, and be able to drop ship just a necklace that only hits a specific target market. So, for example, dropshipping is making your own kind of online store, taking a product from a place like AliExpress, for example, and then throwing that AliExpress product onto your own website store. And when you get enough orders for it, you just order them off of AliExpress for a lot cheaper than what you're selling it for, and then it's shipped right to their house. You input their information. You don't even have to touch the product. That's dropshipping, for people who weren't aware. And so you can drop ship a turtle necklace to a specific group of people, mainly, let's say, females in the ages of 25 to 36, and they have to love the ocean or love turtles specifically. You market it properly on Facebook or wherever to just that specific demographic, and next thing you know, people are buying it. And there's no real reason. They didn't think they needed it before they saw your product, so the advertising is all that matters. The picture you put in, the words you put in. For example, if I were to say something like, this turtle necklace saves a turtle for every necklace you buy. How many people, especially in that female demographic from the ages of 25 to 36 who are young and working and would wear a necklace like that, would buy that product?
Thousands.
Exactly. And it's how
if not more.
It's how you play the psychology.
I might buy one.
Yeah,
and I'm not in that demographic, but I might buy one.
It's
so I'm going to save a turtle.
Play the psychology necklace.
And again, I think that just again builds into this idea, and I guess that to me why I'm so passionate about this idea of belonging. I'm passionate about this idea of image and approval, and and maybe partly because I think a lot of people on some level struggle with still this idea. I have to look a certain way. I have to act a certain way. I have to. I want that approval. I mean, I don't know about you. You're probably, you're still young. You are young, but I'm sure you've gotten inundated, especially being married now too. You get inundated with credit card approvals and, you're pre-approved for this. You're that. You're this.
We play a game in my household to see who got approved for more interest rate than the other, by the way, because we get the same company giving us the same thing, but at different interest rates.
Right. That's fun. That must be a fun game. But what I'm trying to say is that, and this is where it comes back to me, just a small level, is for most of my life, I always wanted the name brand whatever, right? And even now as an adult, I'm a name brand guy. I have name brand whatever because in my own psychology, right, my own mindset, I'm like, well, if I have that name brand, that means that I'm
right. You and I, even both just talking about shoes, mentioned multiple while we were referring Birkenstock, Van,
right,
all these things,
right. Because we, on some level, want that approval, we want that image, we want that acceptance,
right.
The big one for me is Costco. Everyone shops at Costco. I'm a Costco member myself. By the way, I'm an executive member of Costco, so that means I'm more important than someone else than just a normal everyday person. My card's different. It looks different. Yeah. Everything looks different about it. And again, I just think we all, on some level, want this sense of belonging. So I want to close with this, and then you have a thought. Go ahead. Yeah, so,
please. While we're talking about this, I think it would be really interesting to bring up something from when I was in the Middle East.
Yeah. That's right. You spent some time in Iraq. We talked about that pre-show. So, yeah, go ahead.
And so in the town I was in, there was a street called Poser Street.
In Iraq?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. A giant city that I was in at the time. And
what city was that in Iraq, by the way?
I'm not going to say.
Okay. You can't, can
just
you?
for security reasons.
Okay.
But I am willing to say that the street was called Poser Street by the locals, and every night there were people who would drive their new shiny car down the street. And we're talking like Mazdas, Maseratis. I think I even saw a Lamborghini or two at one time. Like, they would just drive as slow as possible down this one street back and forth for a good hour or two, each car. And you could hang out and you can talk with your friends while you watch the cars drive by on Poser Street. That's the kind of marketing that especially people in other countries look at America and they say, we want what they have. And we'll put ourselves in debt to get it. That car actually cost more than their house. But they're willing to go in debt for that car because the car is what you drive around in and show people and take ladies out in. For the male culture. Like, the car is actually more important than the space you live in because that's what you show people. You keep it nice, you keep it detailed, and it looks good. And it's expensive. Showing that you are nice, detailed, and expensive.
Because, again, you want that sense of belonging.
Exactly.
Amen. Yeah, I like that. So I want to close with just this thought. If you could... you're not that old, so this is really tough. But, if you could go back and talk to 13-year-old Nolan.
Yeah.
Did he struggle with belonging? Did he struggle with kind of image and approval seeking and, all of that? And if he did, what would you tell 13-year-old Nolan? And then we're going to play a game.
13-year-old Nolan was a messed up kid. I'm going to say that right now. That guy had some severe issues, and probably most of them, mental and dealing with depression and wanting to fit in. So I would tell 13-year-old Nolan, even though I know it won't work, like if I were to actually go back in time and do this to myself.
I don't have a DeLorean, but if I did.
Like, if I were to actually tell myself, 13-year-old me, hey, look, this is me from future you. Don't fall into the trap. Don't worry about it. People are going to think what they're going to think. Just do what you got to do. Just be you. I wouldn't listen. 13-year-old me wouldn't even listen because that's so countercultural. That's so against the grain. He just wants to fit in. That's like... And I wouldn't even give myself the excuse of like, well, how do you know? Who are you to talk? Oh, you're me from the future. Well, I guess you're an interesting guy, but you're not me right now. So I don't care. That would be 13-year-old Nolan's response. And that's sad to me. But when I think about it, I had to go through what I had to go through to be who I am today. So I'm actually pretty content with how my life has gone so far, even though some of it has been pretty trashed. By the culture, by my own doing, by my own mentality, whatever have you. It's life circumstances. It's been trashed. But everything has made me who I am today, so I can't complain. I'm happy with who I am today. And there's still a lot more growing to do.
I lied. Well, sort of. Another question popped into my head that I really think would wrap it up really good. What would you say to someone right now who says, you know what, I'm hearing this. I really struggled with belonging. I've really struggled with my image. I've really struggled with, seeking everyone else's approval. What would be your response to them if they came to you? You mentioned your job and kind of what you do. Now, I don't know if you want to say what you do. It's up to you. I'm going to leave that up to you when you answer. But what would you tell somebody who's saying, they come into your office and they say, Nolan, I'm really struggling with this. Help me get out of this. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so my first initial response to that person would be, look, I'm not going to try and tell you to either go with the grain or go against the grain because you've heard that before. I'm actually going to say and recommend to you, go with, this may come off wrong and I really hope it doesn't. Go with the people who you don't agree with. Hang out with those people. Hang out with the people who don't agree with you and don't believe the way you believe and think the way you think. This is something that I don't think I've heard anybody say in the context of belonging before. Most people say, forget them, they're haters, be who you need to be, focus on you, and then get with other people who agree with you. Or, focus on just you. Don't even worry about other people is the most common one I'm hearing right now, which is just be you, and you is good, and be you now. Now is okay. Be you now. But that's not...
Yeah, the you be you movement, right? Is that what you're referring to?
Not just that movement, but yeah, that's the base mentality is you be you, I'll be me, we're okay, even if we never talk again. No, I'm going to actually recommend to challenge yourself. Speaking to this person who could be listening right now, challenge yourself to go hang out with people and meet new people in groups and social situations and circles you don't understand and you don't agree with. Even if you have preconformed biases and conceptions about them, work on understanding why you have those with them. It's easy to get into our own little subcultures who agree with each other. And I think this is the biggest problem in the Christian community. We just sit in agreement circles or whatever you want to call them, Jesus circles that focus on, well, this is my Jesus. Or is your Jesus the same Jesus as my Jesus? Because that's how I read this Bible. It doesn't matter. Even within the Christian community, we're struggling with that. I want to seek out, and I want to challenge you to do the same thing, people who don't agree with you so that you can better understand their position and either agree or disagree with it and know why, but still have a relationship with them. Still be friends. That's the biggest challenge.
And I think in that, I think there is still that sense of belonging, right? You're at least trying to make an attempt to maybe bring them into a belonging, even in that. Yeah,
Not just that, but it goes and it hits this whole understanding of being a human together as another human. All you have is just you-ness and me-ness. There is a sense, and certain philosophies I think are right about this, and even in Christianity, where you deal with the oneness of being the body, as Paul writes, of Christ, or just the body of humans, period. We're all on this ball together. We got to figure it out somehow. And if we're not taking steps to figure it out, then all we're doing is waging war on people who we think hate us, when maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, maybe they're trying to find a sense of belonging as well. Yeah, pretty solid stuff there. So we're going to play a game, Nolan. Right there in that awesome baby blue colored cup is a die. I know you're kind of a die guy, right? You play some dice games.
I play some D&D.
Okay, all right. I kind of had that feeling. So we have a die, not to be confused with a dice, but a die.
Yeah.
And you're going to roll that. And then I'm going to give you just a fun little question to close with. This is a game I like to call Senseless. So there you go.
That was
Nice.
probably really loud for
That's
you
okay.
guys. I'm sorry.
We're all right. What do we got? What's the number?
A 3.
Number 3. Dun, 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 dun. Greatest thing you've ever smelled.
Greatest thing I've ever smelled. Oh, man.
Yeah. There you go. The greatest thing.
Okay. So
You've
first
ever
things come to
smelled.
mind are sweet, sugary things, and I do love sweet, sugary things. Right?
Okay.
I don't know
doesn't?
anybody who doesn't.
Right?
They can be
Somebody
too
low
much love
carb
there.
might not love sweet, sugary things.
So,
but I get
so
you.
some of my first thoughts off the top of my head
Yeah.
are fresh baked cookies, cinnamon rolls, and fruity pebbles. Go figure. Came to my head. So top 3 items right there. And if you can combine all those into one, which I think people have at times, you can make that cream cheese frosting on a cinnamon roll out of fruity pebble deliciousness. It's possible. And the fresh baked cookie, I'm not quite sure how you'd work that in there. Maybe just the chocolate chip scent. But I think it's possible to do that. So that would probably be one of the best things I've ever smelled. I know that's more of a hypothetical. I want that to happen. But fresh baked cookies is definitely on the list.
Gotcha. That is awesome. Okay. So, Nolan, I'll give you the last word, and then I'll wrap it up. Any closing thoughts you have? Anything you want to really share or kind of just end with on this whole idea of belonging?
Yeah. Look, if we've kind of already talked at this point around this whole idea of being who you need to be to survive or thrive, it would even be better. You want to thrive, not just survive in life. And so talking to that person who's just kind of listening out there going, hey, yeah, I'm kind of done with trying to fit everybody else's mentality. I'm gonna say, go you. Keep struggling. Keep working through that. Find determination in daily life. Don't let yourself down. And how you talk to yourself is a huge key indicator in this. If you're talking to yourself and you're saying, look, I'm not going to belong anywhere because no one is like who I am or even likes me, then knock that off. You know, how you talk to yourself is going to be step number 1. Talk to yourself in a way, and I'm speaking to myself here as I'm saying this, talking to yourself, waking up in the morning, looking at yourself at the mirror and saying, yeah, I think I'm going to challenge myself to do one thing today that challenges me to be a better me. And then you're going to start liking yourself. And then you're going to start liking the habits you're forming. And the habits you're forming are going to start changing who you are little by little. And those habits that you're forming, most likely good habits at that point, especially if you're working out, you're running, drinking more water, that kind of stuff, clears up complexion, all these little things matter. How you move throughout this day, remember that you yourself are not just only you, but you are part of also whoever you interact. Your life journey affects everyone else's life journey that you interact as well with. Everyone else will have a memory or an impression of you within the first 30 seconds. And there is a reason for that. And it's not a bad reason. It's just a reason. So be the best you, but in a way that challenges you.
Be the best version of yourself, to sum that up, huh?
My goal in life is always asking the question, how do I be the best human that I can be?
Nice. I like that. That's really good, too. Well, Nolan, thanks for coming on. Hopefully it was fun. Hopefully it was exciting.
Yeah, it really was. I really enjoyed this.
Great. All right. Well, there we go. So I just want to close with just this simple thought, and that's this, is that remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you just got to remember you really are going to get a different